Polak game was invented by Peter Hayward, who for a decade and a half ran the strategic foresight program at Swinburne University of Technology in Melbourne, Australia. And Peter derived the game from some terms in the book, The Image of the Future, which are essence optimism and pessimism, and influence optimism and pessimism. And so essence has to do with basically what people expect. And influence is what they think their role can be in relation to making change happen. So the game is to ask a group of people to line up and then to either step forward of the line or back based on whether their expectations for, and I find it helpful to nail it down and say, okay, well, let's say it's a generation from now. So we're not just asking generally about any old future, so that one person's imagining 6 months and another person's imagining a millennium. Cancel that variable out and say, let's say it's a generation. In a generation from now, do you imagine the world being better or worse than it is now? And this is obviously a big fuzzy global assessment. So mileage is going to vary, but that's fine. You can unpack all of that in conversation. And so people spread themselves out, and then along that spectrum, forward of the line if they are optimistic in their expectations, and back of it if they are pessimistic. And then you ask them about their role or their sense of their own agency to influence things on that scale over that time frame. And people step to the right if they are, sort of see themselves as being able to shape things at that scale over a generation, like for the world, and to the left if they don't. And what you end up with is the group split up into 4 quadrants along these 2 spectra. So you've kind of got a spread of answers to the question, and then you have a conversation across those boundary lines and kind of try to tease out, well, why is it that some people, we all live in the same world at some level, so why does this person over here think that things are going to be fantastic and that they can play a role in making them better, and this person over here sees things going to hell in a handbasket and they can't do anything about it? And that, of course, goes to judgments about themselves and about their lot in life, or and about their brain chemistry. I mean, there's a lot of factors in play in those answers, but that's part of the point. You begin to surface all those things. So when I ask myself, usually at the end of the Polak game, because I've been running it for 12 years since Peter introduced it to us in Hawaii. When someone asks me where I put myself on it, I generally say that I don't move forward or back, but I deliberately cultivate movement to the right on the influence axis. So in a way, I suppose I have a slightly Taoist. Some things get better, some things get worse, but we can try to cultivate the better by taking part actively in the change process. I think, depending on one's mood, and this is something that you find with other players as well, and depending on on how literally you take the global scale part of the question versus a sort of, I'll just think about my context. It seems like me and my friends are going to be okay. You answer differently. But I think perhaps at the moment it's difficult not to imagine things getting worse in the shorter term. I'd like to think though that given a generation, if we were to ask about 25 years from now, there's a dialectical function of sorts to how history unfolds. The pendulum swings one way and then another, and I think that the swing in the last couple of years, certainly in the United States, has been toward the deeply alarming and toward rolling back frontiers of mutual understanding and empathy that have been very hard won and that I think need to be protected. But I think that in the alarm that has rightly accompanied that turn are the seeds of people doing their own stepping up along that other axis and saying, well, this is not acceptable, and things can be better. but we can't just sit by passively and wait for someone else to make them better for us. So I think possibly by 25 years from now, we may have learned some of those lessons and come back from the dark side that things have turned towards lately.